I want ASIC mining to be for everybody, but I know it can seem like the barrier to entry is a lot higher for ASIC mining than any other type of mining. Because obviously you've got the noise, the massive amount of heat they put out, and the fact that with the amount of power they use, many of you would need special electrical installations done to be able to run them. And also add to that the fact that ASICs can be pretty pricey as well. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can easily solve all of these problems, or how you can even completely steer clear of them to begin with. So let's get right into that after a quick word from our sponsor. Coin Mining Central is an online store for ASIC miners, and there's no doubt that right now ASIC mining is by far looking like the most profitable type of mining, and the miners that I'm personally most interested in right now would probably be the Bitmain L7 and E9 Pro, as well as the Jas-Miner X16Q. And what's cool about Coin Mining Central is that they always offer free worldwide express shipping, and I've always felt fully comfortable recommending them to you guys, and here's why. As opposed to most other ASIC vendors that are based overseas, Coin Mining Central is based and run out of England, Europe, where they have to adhere to the very strict regulations for customer support and personal detail protection that we have over here. And of course, all brand new miners come with a full manufacturer warranty as well. And because of this, Coin Mining Central has been a highly trusted ASIC miner store for miners like you and me for over 5 years at this point. They also care about this community, being very active and reachable on social media, and they've also provided loads of exclusive discount codes for you guys that you can use together with the link in the video description to save big on any miner that you want to get. And speaking of prices, I don't know if you've noticed, but ASIC prices have been dropping dramatically these past few months, so right now could be a very good time to stock up on some cheap hardware before the crypto market recovers, especially considering you get the already competitive pricing that Coin Mining Central has, plus the free worldwide shipping, plus the exclusive discount codes that I mentioned. So go check that out today. I'll have all of those discount codes and the exclusive link for you down in the video description. Alright, let's quickly start the video by ripping off the band-aid that is the price of these things. I think a lot of us might have first looked into ASIC mining during the bull run around 2021, seen that they were like $20,000 to $30,000 each, and just been like, whoa, no way. But the fact is that ASIC miners have come down in price a lot since then, with many of the full-size miners going for between maybe $2,000 to $4,000, and some of the slightly lower power models going for around $1,000 or even lower in many cases. And what I'll do is I'll leave some links down in the description to the miners I think are going for some of the best deals right now, for those of you who want to take advantage of these low prices right now and want to take the leap into ASIC mining. You also, of course, have the even cheaper home miners like the 𝗖𝗛𝗚𝗏s or the gold shell box miners. And while there are some decent options there, mostly the 𝗖𝗛𝗚𝗏 SE Plus in my opinion, they usually do come with a bit of a trade-off, being both more expensive on a per hash rate basis, as well as usually being less power efficient than the bigger full-sized ASICs. Plus, running those little box miners aren't really an issue for home miners anyway, which makes it kind of irrelevant in this video. So let's refocus and talk about how to deal with the power infrastructure needed for ASIC mining at home. So let's talk power. And before we get into it, I just want to state here that I'm not an electrician, and the very first step you should take is to look into exactly how the power setup in your house works. You know, how many circuits you have, what they go to, how many amps on each circuit, all that stuff. Make sure you have a good understanding of how the electrical system in your home works before you move on. It's really not very complicated, I promise. So what is the power issue when ASIC mining at home? Well, many full-size ASICs pull over 3,000 watts, which is significantly more than a standard North American wall plug can handle. Add to that the fact that most ASIC miners need at least 200 volts, and the standard home wall plug will only be 120 volts in North America. Now, I keep mentioning North America because, for example, in Europe, most countries actually have native 240 volts in the whole house, so you could in most cases probably just plug a full-size ASIC into the regular wall outlets without issue in Europe. One thing I will note though is that those bigger ASICs that pull over 3000 watts come with 2 power cords, and you might want to split those over 2 different circuits in European homes. That's because it's common for home circuits to only have 10 amp fuses, and 10 amps times 240 volts is of course 2000 2400, which means they can only handle 2400 watts before the fuse would trip. And really you want to stick to the 80% rule here, meaning that you don't want to use more than 80% of the max that the circuit is rated for. But with Europe taken care of, let's talk about North America or anywhere else that uses 120 volt natively. So what are your options here? Well, let's get the easy stuff out the way first. Of course, you could just have an electrician come over and install a 30 amp 240 volt circuit or two. It will cost a bit of money, but you will be all set up and ready to tackle anything mining wise. But of course, there are other options too. The first one is that there is actually a good chance that your house already has a 240 volt circuit, because if you have a tumble dryer or a washer dryer combo unit in your house, then those are pretty much guaranteed to be plugged into an already existing 30 amp 240 volt plug. And the same thing goes for many electric vehicle chargers, by the way. So if that's the case for you, which it very likely is, you've got enough power there to safely run 2 full-size ASICs, no problem. Just go look to see what kind of plug it is, and then get yourself a PDU that can plug into that socket and then power your ASIC miners. Just remember to unplug your ASICs when you need to do laundry, alright? Or if you personally don't have a socket like that in your house, then maybe at least you have a friend or family member that does, and that would let you put a miner in their basement as long as you pay them for power. But let's imagine that's not an option either. Well, there are still plenty of other options for you. To start, there are many ASIC miners that are lower power and can actually run on normal 120 volt plugs. A good example of that is the new Jazzminer X16Q, which I'm very excited about at the moment. Yeah, can't wait to get my hands on that one. And you've of course also got stuff like the iServer KS0 or Goldshell's light miners, who also all run on 120 volt, no problem. And if that's not your jam, then you can of course just look into hosting, which is getting more and more popular, and finding hosting for ASICs is very easy at this point. For those of you who might be unaware, hosting is basically just when you send your miners to somebody else, usually a big warehouse, and they run them there for you and you just pay them a monthly fee. That fee is usually just based on how much electricity you use, so it will be a price per kilowatt hour, and that price is usually pretty cheap, definitely cheaper than any sort of residential power price. And as a bonus, you of course also don't have to worry about noise or heat. And speaking of heat though, let's tackle that next. So the fact that these things pull over 3000 watts of power obviously then also means that they put out over 3000 watts of heat. And it doesn't take long for that to heat up any room, even during the coldest of winter days. And most of you probably already know that tackling the heat produced by mining hardware is not about trying to cool the room back down using AC or anything like that, since then all you have is just a miner heating up the room and an AC cooling the room, and it's just these two devices pulling loads of energy fighting each other. Instead, it's all about just taking the hot air that is produced by the mining hardware and getting it out of the room as efficiently as possible. Now, especially for stuff like open air GPU mining rigs, which a lot of you are probably familiar with already, that can be really tricky as the open air design just kind of radiates the heat out in all different directions. Which is why we see a lot of people putting their GPU mining rigs in grow tents to contain all the heat they produce inside that tent, and then use inline fans and ducting to transport that hot air out of the house. Well, with ASIC miners, we actually have a massive advantage over open air GPU mining rigs in this regard, because ASIC miners are kind of perfectly designed to already help you contain and direct all the hot air they produce. Because obviously, due to how they are designed, they pull cool air in on one end, and then they push all the hot air that they produce out in one straight direction out of the other side. And all we have to do then is just direct that hot air out of the house somehow, and there are actually so many simple yet clever ways of doing this. For example, you can get these simple fan shrouds that just easily screw onto your ASIC's exhaust fans to then connect ducting to, and just pipe out all the hot air either directly into your HVAC system or just out a window or vent or whatever. I'll link those shrouds down in the video description, by the way. Or you can do something similar to what I did, which was to create these styrofoam tunnels that the ASIC exhaust fans just slot into, and then just pipes out the hot air out a window. By the way, I have a whole video about that solution, and the whole thing actually only cost me like $9 to build and set up, so I'll link that video down in the description as well. Finally, we have noise, because obviously some of these ASICs can get really loud. Specifically, it's the stock high RPM fans on the ASICs that, when needed, can spin up to ridiculous speeds in order to keep the ASIC from overheating. And they then also produce sound that can get as loud as 85 decibels. And here is where you kind of have to make an individual judgment call for just how much noise you can handle in your personal situation. And I'll go over the different solutions, starting with those of you who have no problem with the full noise volume of the ASICs at all, and then go all the way to those of you who need them to be as close to whisper quiet as possible. So obviously, if you're planning to run your ASICs out of an insulated shed, detached garage, or anything like that where you can't even hear them anyway, then great, no need to do anything. Next step is if maybe you're planning to run them in your basement or something like that, where some noise is okay as long as they're not absolutely screaming in there. And for that, well, you're actually probably going to be fine as long as you make sure you have a solid heat management solution, which is what we, just spoke about previously in this video. That's because the ASIC fans are only really loud when they need to spin at or close to 100% speed in order to keep the ASIC cool, but they very quickly quiet down significantly when spinning slower. So obviously making sure you have a good solution for exhausting all the hot air so that the ASIC stays cool naturally will greatly reduce the fan speed needed. But another trick here is that a lot of ASICs nowadays also have either a low power mode or custom firmware that lets you undervolt the miner to significantly reduce their power consumption. And of course, less power used by the miner means less heat produced, which also means much lower fan speeds. These low power modes usually also significantly increase the mining efficiency, meaning you get more hash rate per watt of power, which in many cases will increase your profitability. But of course it does lower the total hash rate. With my styrofoam cooling setup, I actually reduced the sound volume of my ASICs all the way down to just 62 decibels. And it went from being this, really whiny high pitch noise to a much more comfortable, just kind of normal whooshy fan noise. And finally, if you need close to complete silence, there are options for that too. Most notably, the fact that you can actually remove all those loud high RPM fans from the ASIC and instead hook it up to an 8-inch inline fan using these special 3D printed shrouds. There are even sophisticated setups where you can plug in the fan controller into the actual ASIC to have the ASIC control the speed of the inline fan so that it perfectly cools the ASIC while keeping the fan speed as low as possible at all times. And those inline fans are insanely quiet. I'll link this specific one in the video description. It's the one that I would recommend because at full speed this thing only puts out about 39 decibels of noise, which is about the noise level of a quiet room according to this decibel chart I found online. And it would only get quieter than that because you're obviously not going to need to run this inline fan at full speed. Well, hopefully at least. Please subscribe for more mining videos, and if you want to support the channel so that I can keep making videos like this one, you can click the join button below to get access to some bonus content, or you could buy one of the shirts in my merch store. Link to that will be down in the video description, and those things both really do make a difference, so thank you. There are also some videos over there on your right that you can watch next, so yeah, I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.